Hello and welcome along to our online grind sessions. My name is Gavin and I'm one of the English teachers here in the Academy. I'll be walking you through, guys, the next 29 classes that we have laid out in front of us, walking us through the entire Paper 1 and Paper 2 for higher level English. Okay, let's have a little look in terms of, we'll just launch straight into it. So obviously we have our notes in front of us there. The first set of notes we're going to be working off is the Paper 1 notes. They say comprehending on the front page. So those are the ones that we're going to be working off. Okay, we obviously have two full sets of our Paper 1 notes. You can see that are well over 300 pages of material. And the reason why there are over 300 pages of material is, and this is something that you'll hear me hammer on over the next number of weeks, is that, again, your Paper 1 material is worth 50% of your entire grade, okay? So it's something that we absolutely cannot neglect. You know, arguably 12 weeks out of our 29 weeks will be spent on our Paper 1, 10 to 12 weeks will be spent on our Paper 1 material, and then the latter stages then will be based on our Paper 2 material. So effectively it is so important that we get this right and we get it nailed on at a very early stage, okay? The first 6 weeks, guys, we're going to be looking at our Paper 1 material, and then we'll change it up. Week 7, which will be just before the October midterm, so obviously we have a 7-week term ahead of us in terms of the grinds. You might have a slightly longer term in terms of the day schools, obviously depending when you've come back. But our 7-week term, basically, we're going to have 6 weeks, and we're going to look at our Paper 1 material within those 6 weeks, and then the 7th week then we'll be on into poetry and our introduction to poetry, and our introduction into our Paper 2 material as well. So it'll give us a nice little base in terms of our Paper 2 material, have a week off in terms of the grinds, and then back into it then in terms of the term leading up into Christmas, okay? In the first 6 weeks, guys, what we're going to cover is today's class and today's session. We're going to have our introduction into basically English in terms of Paper 1 and Paper 2. I recognise that we are all 6th years now. Having said that, we've had an inordinate break from being in 5th year all the way into 6th year. You guys have missed out on a lot of tuition. So again, you've missed out in terms of that face time, that class time as well. So again, we have to go back over and we have to rehash over a lot of old ground. So week 1, guys, will be our introduction into our English in terms of both Paper 1, Paper 2. We'll talk a little bit about the exam, not a huge amount, because obviously the exam is very far away, but still we can have a little flirtation with that in today's class as well. Predominantly though, the main thing that we're going to talk about in today's class is what's called our categories of language, okay? And we're going to have a really strong introduction into our categories of language, walk our way through the acronym PAIN. You can see it on the board now. I'll walk you through the boards in a second, tell you how the classes work. We'll walk ourselves through that acronym and really talk about our categories of language, cementing that. That'll lead us on into week 2, and we'll start looking at 2 categories of language in detail. Same with week 3. Again, we'll look at 2, if not then our final 3 categories of language. And then what we start to do is we start to get into the real pragmatic nitty gritty. Then we start to get into our question A material, 12.5% of our grade, really starting to figure out how do we use all these building blocks, how do we use the first 3 weeks of tuition in terms of answering then our question A questions, our question B questions, and on into our section 2, okay? But those final weeks, in terms of week 4 and week 5, we'll be very much looking at our question A questions, really cementing structure. How do we map out 12.5%? What can I do so that the examiners, when they pick up my script, they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Tick, tick, tick. Again, work off coding, etc. Our PCLM, these things that we'll talk about today. We'll look at that in week 4 and week 5. In week 6 then what we'll do is we'll look at our question B material. And again, arguably one of the easiest things that we can do in terms of our entire Leaving Cert is the question B. We'll look at the most common questions that tend to crop up over and over again, and we'll get really good at answering them. We'll look at a huge amount of exemplar material. We'll start to pick and choose little things that we can start to amalgamate within our own scripts, and then yeah, we'll find it quite easy, I think, a lot of us at home, to cement as much of that 12.5% as possible. And then, as discussed, then week 7, final week before our midterm, we'll start looking at our Paper 2 material, introduction to poetry, introduction to unseen poetry as well. Alright, so guys, that's a little overview of what to expect over the next few coming sessions. Alright.